Hello and welcome to Camp Kindergarten, Session 2, Reading. My name is Sarah Scoggin and I'm the Early Childhood Librarian at Newburgh Free Library, Newburgh, New York. If you want to see the first Camp Kindergarten video on social emotional learning and classroom skills, you can check it out in the card. If you haven't already done so and would like to, you can sign up for ReadSquared, our summer reading digital platform for laptop or app, with the link down in the description. What that allows you to do is to get points by doing optional learning missions, and that way you can earn digital badges and points towards finishing the online summer reading program. Or you can just do the activities for learning and fun. Let's start with a song. Hi, hello, and how are you? Hi, hello, and how are you? How are you? How are you? Hi, hello, and how are you? How are you today? I'm going to start our reading session by reading a portion of this book, Dig, Dog, Dig, A Construction Tale, written and illustrated by James Horvath. And really the key to raising a child who loves reading is to read a lot and to make reading truly as engaging as it can be. So I would start by reading the title and author as I did. This book is published by HarperCollins. And let's get started. Dig, dog, dig. Wake up, dogs. You're going to be late. The sun is up. There's no time to wait. Grab your gloves, hard hats and boots, shovels, goggles, and dirt-digging suits. Eat some breakfast on the go. Quickly now, you're moving too slow. Hop in your trucks, there's work to be done. Get to the job site. Run, dogs, run. Push and plow and clear the way. The bulldozer makes it look easy each day. The loader picks up a rocky big bite and moves out the rubble with all its might. So as I said, this is a sample of this book. Now, if I were reading this book one-on-one, I would stop as I go through to make it more interactive. Now, I'm going to give you a lot of examples. I wouldn't stop 20 times a page if I were reading something, because that would break up the story too much. But you don't have to just read without stopping, as I did in that example. I could say, wake up, dogs, you're going to be late. The sun is up. There's no time to wait. Say, oh, late? Wait. If I were reading this book multiple times, I could have a child clap when they hear a rhyme, so late, and then they clap when they hear wait. Or I could say, let's say their name starts with B. What in this room do you see that starts with B? We've got boots, we've got a ball, we've got bones, we've got bowls, we've got a blue cup, we've got bunk beds, a beautiful day outside. There's a lot of things that you could say start with B. You could talk about why there's little Z's above the dogs' heads. You could count the number of dogs. You could point out the little cat who will appear recurringly throughout the story in the background. You could increase their vocabulary. There are some things in this page that they obviously know what they are, like this broom, but we have steel-toed boots here, and this little stick in the corner with markings, a depth measuring stick. So you could point at any of those things, point out what this is a megaphone or the D on the dog's hat, or ask a question like, why are all of these dogs yawning? On this page with the pancakes, you could have synonyms. You could say sometimes people call them griddle cakes or flapjacks. Or you could say, how do you make pancakes? What do you put in pancakes in a recipe to make them? You could, again, you do something like with the words in the picture in the background, like on these lunch boxes, we have Buddy, Max, and Spike. And in the front cover, it said which one was which, so you could match up whose lunchbox is whose. Here, when they say run, dogs, run, it's in really big print. Say, Why do you think it's in really big letters? Maybe we should say that loud. Run, dogs, run! Really excited with an exclamation point. So there's so many details that you can use in a book to make it more engaging. Ask questions and let them ask questions. Jim Trelease in his Read Aloud Handbook, which is a fabulous read, and it's also, you can check out the website. He talks about children asking questions. What kind of questions are they asking? Are they silly? Are they the result of curiosity, or are they extraneous to the story? Is your child sincerely trying to learn something or postponing bedtime? You can solve the latter problem if you make a regular habit of talking about the story when you finish, instead of simply closing the book. I wish I had time to actually read aloud this entire Read Aloud Handbook. There's so many great ideas in here. But just to make reading interactive, reading is one of the domains of learning that we talked about in the last video for kindergarten readiness, and actually is language and literacy, because the spoken and the written word go hand in hand. I just want to talk briefly about the pre-reading skills that rising kindergartners need to be successful in learning to read, and then we'll have 12 different reading activities for you to try. And your mission, if you're signed up in ReadSquared, is to do any one of them. So you can do one or more for your mission. So here are the 6 early literacy skills from Every Child Ready to Read, brought to you here by the Colorado Libraries for Early Literacy. And the 6 skills are print motivation, print awareness, letter knowledge, vocabulary, phonological awareness, and narrative skills. Print motivation is just being interested in books and enjoying books, to give them that extra boost when reading is hard work to learn how. Print awareness is noticing print everywhere, knowing how to handle a book, knowing how to follow the word on the page from left to right and then down to the next line. So here are some concepts of print from an author, Mark B. Throgmorton, Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books. You can pause the video if you want to take a look at this list, but just a couple of ones I want to mention. Can the child point to where you should start reading on the page, the first word of text as opposed to the picture? Can the child point to one word at a time if you read slowly, that words have a one-to-one match when spoken out loud or read on the page? Letter knowledge, knowing that letters are different from each other, knowing the letter names and their sounds, that they're different, recognizing letters everywhere. Vocabulary, knowing all kinds of words, a speaking and listening vocabulary before we even get to reading vocabulary. Phonological awareness, hearing and playing with the smaller sounds of words. And finally, narrative skills, describing things and events, telling stories, knowing the order of events, and making predictions. Okay, activity 1, read, 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 read in all sorts of ways. Okay, so the reading activity is to try to find a way to read or a place to read you don't usually do. So you could try browsing through a huge book and just looking at the pictures. You could try to find the tiniest book you can. You could try to read a nonfiction book if you're used to reading fiction, and you take a look. They usually have little bubbles or sidebars or boxes, and there's even a very simple little glossary in the back. You could try reading Frog and Toad and have the child pick a story from the table of contents and practice going to that page. You could read a joke book, put a joke in between things fixing dinner, or here's a collection, read me a story please, and they come in 2-minute stories, 5-minute stories, or 10-minute stories. So you could say, during these commercials we're going to mute the sound and read this 2-minute story about Fussy the baby. Just something to make reading a little bit different than what you usually do. Here we have a reading fort under a table. Just having a cozy place to read can make all the difference. You could try reading out of book bins if you have your books currently just on a shelf I got some bins from the dollar store, and I can let my little one decide what to read by browsing through the bins. Or on the right there, again from the dollar store, I got some little sticky hooks and put them on the wall so that I could put up books, sort of like art, or like what they do in bookstores, putting books face out to make them interesting. Activity 2, letter hopscotch. So here we have our letter hopscotch. Over on the right, you can see from Gift of Curiosity, you could just do a small hopscotch board if the child's still working on individual letters. Or you could write, as on the left there, from Creative Family Fun, a whole grid of the entire alphabet, and then have your child spell the word. So if you say, can you spell the word jump? And then have them jump on the letters one by one. You could play any game that you can think of with the spelling or letter sounds, just to make it a little more active. You could, in the corner there where it says toddler approved, little kid drawing bugs with letters. You could even do bugs with short words, and then have them spray the bugs with water as they read the letters or the words. Activity 3, tell a story, tell it twice. So as I mentioned earlier with narrative skills, retelling a story is a great way to practice pre-reading skills. I have here classic fairy tales, and this one happens to contain the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So let's say I read this story, and then when I was done, I would have the child tell the story back to me. But to make it even more fun and interactive, and maybe jog memories, I made here a storytelling set. This is just paper. It's actually a brown paper grocery bag that I cut out. Put little magnets on the back, but you could just use it on the floor. And these are sticky notes for the different shape, size bowls. And this was a little figure I happened to have. But you can just make something simple or as elaborate as you like, and then the child can retell the story. And especially a story like this, it's also good for patterns because it's the same pattern each time with bowls, and then Goldilocks sees the chairs, and then she sees 3 beds as the story is told. Activity 4, cyber readers. So using reading online to the best advantage by watching with your little one. So at the Newburgh Free Library, we do have ebooks specifically for little ones. If you start on our main page, newburghlibrary.org, and go to Youth Services, then down to School Age, and down to ebooks and digital books for kids. So here we have a sample of our ebooks for kids. I'm going to click on Tumblebooks. So those who have a Newburgh Free Library card can enter in their library card number, and here we have the Tumblebook library, or if your library subscribes to Tumblebooks. And let's pick storybooks. There's so many choices of storybooks. I'm going to pick Bebe Goes Shopping. So here I see the title, the author. I can play it as a video, how long it is, its reading level. Activity 5, time for rhyme. There are lots of fabulous ways to practice rhyming, and as I mentioned before, with phonological awareness, being able to take apart the sound of words, rhyming is one of the best ways to teach that. So I have here 3 cups, and I've just labeled them CAT. You could use the little paper cups, and then I'm going to add another cup after I read that one. Okay, cat, and now what does it say? Mat. So they can visually see that rhymes are when the ending sounds are the same because I didn't change these 2 cups. And I could put as many different rhymes in this word family as I wanted, cat, mat, fat, sat, as many cups as I wanted, or I could even do a blend. So I have an F and an L on this cup. Say this is one sound that's blended together, and it makes flat. Activity 6, a picture walk. So a picture walk is something you can do if you have a book that has fallen apart and is really not salvageable. You can take all the pages apart and then scatter them around your house, or one room, or out in your backyard. Here I have a page in the door of a shed and 1 page in a bush, and then you actually go on sort of a scavenger hunt and you find the pages one by one and read them until you've told the whole story. Of course, you could just draw simple pictures to tell a story yourself if you didn't have a book that had sadly fallen to pieces. The CVC, or Consonant Vowel Consonant game. Okay, so the Consonant Vowel Consonant grab game I encountered first on a website called What You Can Do with Paper and Glue, and it involves taking 3 containers. You could use paper bags. I'm using 2 oatmeal containers and tissue box. And you take letter tiles, so like Scrabble tiles, bananagrams, anything that has letters on it, big letter beads, even pieces of paper with letters, and you put consonants in one, vowels in the middle, and more consonants in this one. And then you have a young one, preschooler, reach in, and so I'm going to reach in, I pull out an F, okay, and I reach in another, and I get an E, and let's see, what did I get for my last letter? D. Okay, so I spelled the word fed. That's a consonant vowel consonant word. And then I would have a piece of paper that was divided in half. One side would write real words, and on the other side we'd write silly words. So I said, oh, fed, that's a real word. And I could have the little one use it in a sentence, or I could use it in a sentence. Okay, fed's going on our real word side. Okay, a P, an A, and a G. Pag. I'm not familiar with any word pag, so that would go on my silly word side. And as the author of the website mentioned, you can even count if you're getting more silly words or more real words. Reading silly words is actually a great way to practice reading because you're not guessing. You don't know. It could just be a nonsense word, so you actually have to sound out every word. Activity 8, Flying Letter Sounds. So here we have our letter Zipline, and I'm indebted for this activity to a website called Stir the Wonder. So you can see there, the author of that site made little pieces of paper with puffy letter stickers with eyes. You can just draw yours, make cute little letters, and then have them slide down a string on a bent paper clip. And as they go down the zip line, they have to make their sound. So the M could go down, or repeat the sound if it's a consonant like D. It could go d d d d d d as it goes down the zip line. Or you could try sight word paper airplanes. My sight word is this. Activity 9, recipe reading. So here's an example of a recipe that is a rebus, as they call it. So you have the simple steps: wash the celery, cut the celery, spread cream cheese on the celery, add raisins, and enjoy. But some of the words, most of them have a picture alongside the word, or some of them as in cut the celery. The word celery has actually been replaced by a picture of celery. So rebus reading, there are books that are rebus readers. Can give confidence to a child who may be shaky on decoding the words so that they can practice seeing the word alongside the picture. But even just a regular recipe with no pictures, a simple one, you could say, okay, recipes tell us what to do. We can read them, follow the steps, and have the child read along with you as best as he or she can as you make a snack. And then they'll see it, one of the many reasons for motivation to learn to read, yummy food. Activity 10, crazy dinners. And this is an activity I got from the same teachers who created the book Beyond Bedtime Stories. So the Beyond Bedtime Stories team created the Engaging Families in Children's Literacy Development Program, and this is one of their activities. They had a bunch of pictures of food, and they had the children cut them out and then sort them onto paper plates based on the first sound in the food's name. Not necessarily the first letter, but the first sound. And then say, would that make a crazy dinner or a good dinner? So we have a blend with cherry and cheese go together, straightforward B sound for broccoli and bread, And then cereal and soup end up together, even though they have different letters because they have the same sound. Even if you're not doing this activity per se, you could just talk about what you're eating for dinner. So if you had some bread on the table, you could say, would you pass the food that starts with the B sound? And depending on what you're eating, you could even sort the food that you're actually having. Activity 11, shared reading. There are a number of books like this one. You read to me, I'll read to you. It's poems, and you read two voices. But there are also books where one page will be, large print, simple words, and the other page will have a lot more text, smaller, so that the child can read one page and the adult can read the other page. If you don't have a book like that, you can, of course, just read a simple book and alternate. So, for example, this one is Bears on Wheels by Stan and Jan Bernstein, and this page just says 5 on 1. But you don't have to limit yourself, if you're not doing shared reading, to you just reading out loud a whole book that is an easy reader that's really meant for practicing decoding, actual reading. Children can understand books approximately 2 grade levels above what they can read until about 8th grade. So they can be interested in stories that are harder than they can actually read themselves. So a first grader might really love this classic storybook fables book, Beauty and the Beast, especially with these very detailed illustrations, even though this is way too much print for them to read, or difficult vocabulary on their own, but they will still love hearing it. And that's another reason why I very, very, very much encourage you to keep reading out loud to your kids, even after they can read themselves, because they'll be able to work on listening to ideas, understanding stories, enjoying literature that's beyond their ability to actually read the words. So it will be a great benefit to them, and they will get an extra boost of love of reading, even if they can read simple stories by themselves. Activity 12, question of the day. So finally we have a question of the day. This is an example from a program used by the district, Creative Classroom. So they might encounter this. And so you have a question that you could write up on maybe a dry erase board or on a piece of paper and say, the question of the day is, did Humpty Dumpty dance or fall? Or what should you do if you're sad at school? Or do you know what this is? And hold up a clock. Whatever the question is, a question that can be answered then by reading a book. So those were our reading activities. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, your mission on ReadSquared is to try any one of them. Hope to see you again next time.